Hello and welcome. What the fuck? We'll just restart that. Here we go. Hello and welcome to Three's a Crime, a true crime podcast. I'm Tori.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Lindsey.
And that's our intro.
Here we are professional podcasters.
We're podcasters, bitches.
Also, I think my voice still sounds weird because I'm still getting over being sick.
It's a little bit deeper, but I mean, it's also we're in a fire pit.
We live in
Spokane.
Spokane right now.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's really bad.
It is. I think we all sound like
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little.
We're all just inhaling smoke.
It's fire season in Spokane.
It's bad. My friend Brandy, who listens to us, she's really into the Warrens, and she said that there's that a psychic did a deep dive onto Ed Gein.
Oh.
Ed Gein.
Ed Gein.
And it's on Discovery Plus.
Oh.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Ed Gein was the guy that Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based on, Buffalo
Yes.
Bill and Silence of the Lambs is based on.
Do you know that I actually don't know anything about Ed Gein?
You don't?
Holy
No.
fuck, you would love him.
I know,
Oh, yeah.
I know.
He,
It's like
yeah,
one of the
he
ones
made-
I'm like, how do I not know? It's just.
I mean, he made a skin suit, so that's
I mean, he used to
pretty crazy.
make, vaginas and nipples. He made a nipple belt. Had a real nipple.
I do
made-
recall the nipple belt thing.
He made like ashtrays and things out of skulls.
It's called Ed Gein, the Real Psycho.
Okay, that's the name of that.
It's on Discovery.
Yeah, and it was up on April 9th, so it's up now.
Cool.
But Brandy said it was really good and interesting. And she said there's also another documentary with the Warrens and the girl from Portals to Hell. Who's also from Paranormal State.
Caitlin, yeah.
And she would have Lorraine on when she dealt with like really fucked up shit.
But have you guys ever heard the song by what is it, Greensleeves? All right, I'm going to play this.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, guys, but you're going to love it. Soft and smooth and your heart will be mine. It rubs the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. It rubs the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. It's so fucking catchy, man.
It is.
It is.
God, I haven't seen that movie in such a long time.
And we started our Three's a Crime podcast community on Facebook group, and that will be open to everybody. And then there will be a second special secret double probation one.
Probation.
Have you ever seen Animal House? When they're on double secret probation.
Oh, that was one more thing I did also want to tell people before we start is we're going to last podcast on the left in December.
Oh,
yes. Yay! We're
Forgot
going to
about that.
go see their live show.
Yeah.
We don't know. Well, have you ever been to a live show?
Yes.
Okay, so Tori and I have not ever been to any podcasting live show.
They're in the beginning of their shows, so it's not what they're doing now. Now they have like a set show they did. It's different for each tour. It's organized. This one was organized that I
My
saw.
friend Eric is coming with us. It's going to be super awesome. Super stoked.
And I think Bren.
Yay! Okay,
I think
cool.
so. Yeah.
Shall we jump right in?
Let's get it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a rough one. I'm sorry. So this is the tragic tale of Kellyanne Bates. Betsy chose this.
Good job, Betsy.
Yeah, Betsy chose this.
Betsy, who makes our amazing Three's a Crime bags.
She does.
And if you want one, you can become a patron at our producer level.
Yes. So Kellyanne Bates was born May 18th, 1978 in Manchester.
Oh,
Manchester. Tori hates when we try our
I know,
accents.
that's why I do it.
But hey, listen, Ellie loved it, so
Maybe I'll try and talk about it like the entire episode. No, that's Australia. That's Australian. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was in Manchester.
my friend Sophie, my friend Sophie's from Manchester, but her parents lived in this little village called Heptonbridge, which is so cute, and it looks like you're driving through a period piece.
Hell yeah.
You know, it's like just one of those. And they lived right behind this big abbey. And Sylvia Plath is buried
I
in their
remember you
backyard.
saying that they
And
have
so
to
I got to go and
watch over
visit
it.
her grave. Yeah, her kids, her children, came to her parents and were like, hey, can you just kind of keep an eye? You know, because people come and they leave pencils and, you know, things to... I love Sylvia Plath. She's... The Bell Jar was an amazing book. But yeah, it says Sylvia Plath Hughes, and then on the inscription on her gravestone says something like, even amidst the flames, the wild lotus can be planted, or something, which I thought was really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, that's intense.
That is intense. So, Kellyanne Bates. She was known to be bubbly, energetic, all around, good teenager, good girl. She was super close with her parents, got along with them really well. She was in school and she had a part-time job and she had dreams of becoming a teacher.
Oh.
Yes. And she was extremely confident. Everything that I heard said she would light up a room. She was just a confident girl.
They're always beautiful and confident, charismatic, and then they're dead.
Yeah.
Always.
And then they're dead.
We're laughing at Lindsay, not at the dad.
not the dad.
But
And then they're dead.
they're always the best.
It's never
and
like
they're
shitty people. It's always
that's-
like incredibly beautiful, wanted to change the world and cure cancer, and then
Yeah.
death. She was also really naive, though. She was really confident, but she was just really naive. Everything I heard and read kind of said she was fairly sheltered, and I mean, she was an only child, which probably adds to that, and just very naive. In 1992, at 14, she met her first boyfriend, a guy named Dave Smith. At first, their relationship was super great. Her and Dave were spending time together, just a normal relationship for that age. Just starting to generally be into boys. So her parents were like, yeah, she'd be hanging out with a boy.
She'd be hanging out with a boy.
She'd be hanging out with a boy. However, Kellyanne soon started to become more rebellious. She was
Kellyanne.
sneaking out. She, just would say she'd be home at one time and then show up after curfew, that kind of thing.
Ooh.
It started getting worse. She started, there were times where she'd be gone for 2 days without saying anything to her parents.
That's not okay.
Oh my
In
God.
1992, we don't have cell phones. You can't fucking
Yeah.
track her on her phone, right? Which is what any parent would do now if your
Yeah.
kid was missing for that long. She would just be like, bye. So naturally, her parents were getting a little concerned. They're like, we know she's a teenager. She's, just got this puppy love thing. Of course, you want to spend all your time with your boyfriend. If you ask me, this is totally normal. This is me 1,000%. I was always hanging out with a boy and I would just want to spend every fucking second with that boy. And so, she just started becoming more and more dependent on him.
Mm.
And at this point, her parents hadn't met Dave, but they had talked to him on the phone a few times. When she would leave his house, he would call her mom and be like, hey, I just, wanted to make sure that she got home okay. And her mom, Margaret, was like, oh, he really, he really cares about where she is. Well, yawn.
That was very
ma'am.
Home Improvement.
That was
Tim Allen that just appeared.
Yeah. That was so sweet. Dave would call, make sure that she got home okay, and Margaret was like, okay, yeah, like, you want to be concerned about my daughter.
So she's from Manchester, but she sounds like
from
Fran
York.
Drescher.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, my daughter.
My daughter.
It would be another 3 months before her parents even met him. When they did finally meet him, that's when Kellyanne told them that he was 32 years old.
I knew it. I was like, this motherfucker's gonna
Yeah.
be old.
Yeah.
And so her parents said that when they met him, they noticed something off immediately, minus the fact that he was 32 dating a 14-year-old girl. Her mother, Margaret, said that, like, as she was standing in the kitchen, she's kind of like awestruck, right? She's like, this guy is 32 years old. She said that she had the overwhelming feeling to grab a knife and stab him, which she has never felt before for anybody.
Right.
And as parents of a teenage girl, they knew that they're like, this is not okay.
My dad would have been like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, like,
out of my house.
yeah.
Pressing charges.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been a big fat no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, both my parents would rage.
But as parents of a teenage girl, they knew that if they pushed her too hard, it was just gonna
make it. She's just gonna make it worse. More.
And the podcast I was listening to, it's called Red Handed. Have you guys heard of that podcast? Mm-hmm. You'd both really like them. 2 British girls. So listening to them talk is just spectacular. But they were saying that they had read a study that said, like, from age 11 to like 14 is like the scariest transition time, because it's when they go from a kid to a teenager and they suddenly. It's a really fucking sketchy time.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, like, from the time I was about 13, 14 to 19, I was still a relatively good kid, but did I have a sassy mouth.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my, God,
my mom actually smacked my face hard once. And it was one of those, and like, never, I mean, that it only ever happened once, but I said something that, like, as soon as it left my mouth, I was like, too far, Tori. Too far.
Just try to
yep.
backtrack that one.
Yeah, no. And I don't even remember what I said, but it was enough to make my mom be like,
that
right across my face.
It's terrifying.
I didn't do any, like, I didn't date anyone who was 32. But I was always dating a boyfriend for a very long term. Like, my first boyfriend, I think I got when I was 11, which I know sounds so young, but like, and I dated them for like a year and a half. I've always been 1,000.
When I was about 14 or 15, there was this super hot guy. His name was Herbie. And he worked at the pizza place in the mall. And I was like,
I want to sit on your face.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I would have. And like, you know, so we would always go and have pizza there, you know, because we were real subtle. And and I was like all about, oh my God. And so Herbie and I started talking, and like he came by the house once, and my dad was like, how old is that man? And I was like, 23. I was like 15. And my dad was like, no, this is not happening.
No.
And then after that, I found out Herbie slept with a friend of mine, and I was like,
no thanks, Herbie.
No thanks, Herb. But Herbie, he was hot. I
didn't ever do any of that.
I never snuck out, but I did have boyfriends like sneak in. Were you bad at all as a teenager? Did you do anything bad?
No.
I feel like mom was not like.
She seems like she wouldn't have time for your shit.
Yeah, she was terrifying, and the first time I smoked weed was in our basement, and she knew. She was like, if you're gonna do this,
right,
do it in the house.
Do it in the house where I know you're safe.
Right.
So, her parents knew that this was not an okay relationship. They knew that they couldn't push too hard, or it was gonna push her closer to him. So they had to be really careful in how they tried to get her away from Dave.
I don't know. I feel like, couldn't the police help with that?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It's kind of a running theme through this story that everyone knew that the relationship was not right, but they were terrified of losing their daughter. She was getting to the point, she was this total trustworthy young girl who was turning into someone who was leaving for 2 days and lying about everything. And they were like, just, they were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. By the time that she was 16, they spent all their time together. Friday after school, she would go to his house, and Sunday evening, he would put her on a bus home and then call her mom to say that, like, she was coming home. So here's the weird thing. Remember when he was calling and it's like, I just want to make sure she's home okay.
Mm-hmm.
What Margaret, the mom, started noticing was he would send her home on a bus, call her mom and say she's on her way home. And then within the minute of her walking in the door, he would call again to make sure that she was there.
No.
And so mom was like...
What year was this?
93, 92.
So there's no tracking device.
Yeah.
Quite yet.
And mom is like, this is super controlling behavior. Like, this is super not. And it's really a bummer. Like, I feel bad for the parents because I want to just be like, why wouldn't you, like, banish her to her bedroom? Or why wouldn't you blah, blah, blah? One, none of us are parents. So our opinion on this is strictly, like, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know what I would do. Like, if she's 16 years old now at this point, like, I don't know how you could, like, force her not to do something.
And if you called the cops too, that could push her more.
Yeah.
Because then it's them against, like, the parents against them, and it becomes
they're having this relationship of, like, it's us against the world.
Exactly.
And, it's like, I don't know. I mean, what would you guys do?
I honestly don't know. I mean, it's really hard. Like, my friend Amanda, her parents got together when her mom was 16 and her dad, I think, was like 46. Like, there was a 30-year age difference between them.
That's like old school times.
Yeah. And he was, I think, even married. He might have been married at the time that they met because he, I think, had kids before he met Amanda's mom.
So he's a real fucking Ed Warren.
Yeah, but you know what, though? I'm like, at the same time, they were really in love. Now, Amanda's dad passed away when she was 11. So he was in his 70s at that point in time. But I mean, they really were in love and they were married for, 30 some years. So but I think that that's an outlier, not typically,
I think all I can think to do would be talk to her and be like,
hope that
do you want your life to be like this? You don't have friends.
Yeah.
You're very isolated. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'd be putting her in therapy. And I don't know. Like,
absolutely.
I think I would have been. I mean, it's so easy to say not being in the situation. And I totally understand why the parents approached it the way that they did.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I don't think as a parent I could, like, abide by it. You know what I mean? I think I would probably be like, this man is a pedophile and he needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I kind of am getting the vibe that she probably kind of felt like this was, like, again, like a super romantic thing. Like, this is her first relationship. She's like, oh my gosh, when I get on the bus and go home, he wants to make sure that I get home safe. And again, her mom is like, this is controlling behavior. And she's like, he just loves me, you know?
And she's 16. So, like, when you're dating an older man like that, you feel like you're more of a grown-up.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm in an adult relationship.
Yeah. So at this point, this is where Kellyanne, like, really started to change. She began to lose weight. She stopped eating. She stopped taking care of herself entirely, and she only wore baggy clothing. Like, she, wouldn't shower for a week, wash her hair. All the classic signs of a depressed person. One day she came home and half of her face was covered in bruises. So the story I heard on the Red Handed podcast, I'll, like, tag it in the show notes because it's a really good episode and I just really like their podcast in general. The story that I had heard on the Red Handed podcast was her mom basically sat her down and was like, look, we can't do this. Like, we can't do this anymore. And she was basically like, if you're living under my roof, like, you can't.
You're done with him.
Yeah. which I think she probably knew was like really risky,
Yeah.
but she was like at her wit's end. She was like,
Yeah.
I don't
Like,
know
I'd
what
be
else to do.
furious. I don't know what I would do with that.
And
Yeah.
I mean, if I hadn't called the cops up until this point, I sure shit would have been calling the cops
Yeah.
when she came
Yeah.
home bruised.
yeah.
So when the day that she saw her bruise, she had like come home from work and Kellyanne was packing her things because she was like, ugh. So she assumed that she was going to move out, and she turned around and yeah, like half of her face was covered in bruises. And her mom was like, what the fuck happened to your face? And Kellyanne goes, oh, I was jumped on the way home from a group of girls and this older couple took me home. And her mom was like,
Yeah, I'm not buying that.
no. So the bright and energetic and bubbly Kellyanne, who had dreams of being a teacher, was starting to disappear. He was trying to isolate her from her family, and it was obviously working. And I kind of, before I go any further, I just wrote a couple notes here about like how abuse works, because I feel like, again, in a situation like this, it's so easy for us to say, why wouldn't you just leave? Or that's always the first question of like, why wouldn't you just leave? If someone beat the shit out of me, I would beat the shit out of them. And like, you just don't know. You
No,
just
it's
don't.
Not. It's such a slow
It's
process.
yeah.
So abusers charm the shit out of people at first.
Mhm.
All of the things I've talked about are classic signs of abuse. And so according to an article in The Independent, which is where I heard, which I heard in the Red Handed podcast, being in an abusive relationship can be like becoming addicted to a drug. It's a roller coaster with punishment and intermittent reinforcement of kindness. The victim's body is going through turmoil, not only physically, but also internally due to their own chemicals and hormones. When they're in a high stress situation, the body is being flooded with the stress hormone cortisol, which is your fight or
Yeah.
flight. And then it's paired with dopamine, which is the feel-good hormone when affection is given. When you have this type of constant up and down, the body becomes addicted to it, and then the stress takes its toll on the body. At some point, the abuser will no longer get any benefit from their victim as if they've sucked them dry. Like
Pretty
leech.
much.
You're right. It's just a slow process, and it's easy to look at this and say, oh my God, a 15-year-old was dating a 32-year-old. And it's like watching a car crash, because it's after the fact. You're like, oh, I would have done whatever differently.
Mhm.
And we're not in that position, and we don't know exactly,
Hindsight is
like, what they were going
2020.
through.
Yeah. Israel Keys always says 2020 hindsight. And I want to be like, that's wrong, you idiot. Fucking hate Israel Keys.
That is her nemesis,
As-
her arch
ugh.
nemesis.
Ugh.
He is the worst.
He's a serial killer, not like a dude I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's the fucking worst. On November 30th, 1995, when Kellyanne is 17, she moves into Dave's home. She would occasionally, okay, again, she's 17. Her family's kind of like, kind of lost control.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't really know what to do. She would occasionally visit her family, and she started showing up again, covered in more bruises. I fell down the stairs, and
I ran into the doorknob.
yeah. And so classic
Mhm.
excuses, walked into a door. One day, she even came home with an insane bite wound on her hand.
Oh.
It was like crazy deep and to the point of being almost infected.
Oh.
And she told her mom that she had like fallen on a fence.
Did the fence have teeth?
Yeah, it just...
Her mom was like, it was a clear, like,
Right.
no. As her visits became less and less frequent, so did her phone calls. And over time, as it happens, she completely disassociated with everyone. Even for Mother's Day, her parents were receiving cards, but they had been written by Dave. It's just a creepy little. Her parents were like, she's not even communicating with us
Just
like via card
gross.
anymore. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's just gone. Let's talk about Dave Smith.
Oh, God.
He was actually named James Patterson Smith, and he was not 32.
45?
48.
I was going to say, was he 90
He
years
was
old?
He was 90. He was 48, and he was an unemployed divorcee living in Gorton, Manchester. His marriage had ended after 10 years in 1980 due to violence towards his wife. He also had a relationship for 2 years in the 80s with a 20-year-old named Tina Watson. And she said he used her as a, quote, punching bag, even subjecting her to severe beatings while she was pregnant with his child. At one point, he even tried to drown her while she was in the bathtub. She managed to escape and escaped from the entire relationship and was like, fuck this. She said, quote, at first it was just now and again, just a little tap. But at the end, it was every day. He would smack me in the face or hit me over the head with an ashtray. He would kick me in the legs or between the legs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, I want people to know, men to know, that while if you get kicked in the cooter,
In the front butt?
in the front butt, it does not, I realize that it does not hurt the way that I'm sure a man's hurts
Its own way.
when he,
Yeah.
but if you've ever had an injury to that area, it fucking hurts.
Yeah. Especially like a bike.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, we
Ooh,
all
you
just like,
stop.
Mhm.
we all just
Stop
touched
short.
our vaginas at the same
Yeah.
time. Like,
Like,
oh. He also had another relationship with a 15-year-old girl named Wendy Motorhead, who was also abused. In one attack, he held her underwater in the kitchen sink in an attempt to drown her. He's just
me.
like all about fucking
the water
drowning people.
Yeah.
So on April 16th, 1996, Dave Smith walked into the police station and calmly said to the officers that his girlfriend Kelly had drowned in the bath. He told them that he had tried to resuscitate her to no avail. Obviously, the police were like, okay, we're going to fucking go to her house and see like what's going on.
Just call.
I know, it was weird that he went there. They quickly made their way to his house where they found her body, naked in the bedroom. The state they found her in was nothing like they had ever seen before.
Oh, no.
And I have no idea how he thought that he was going to tell them that she drowned.
I hate people.
Here is your trigger warning. It was very clear right away that she had been extensively tortured. William Lawler, the pathologist who examined her body, said, quote, in my career, I've examined almost 600 victims of homicide, but I have never come across injuries so extensive. The following injuries were found on her body. Are you ready?
Oh, God.
She had over 150 separate injuries. She had been starved and lost 44 pounds. She hadn't had water for several days. Her knees had been crushed. She had scalds to her buttocks and legs with boiling water, burns on her thigh caused by branding, a fractured arm, multiple stab wounds by knives, forks, and scissors, stab wounds inside of her mouth,
Oh, no. Oh.
crush injuries to both hands, mutilation of ears, nose, eyebrows, mouth, lips, and genitalia, wounds caused by a spade and pruning shears. She was partially scalped. Both of her eyes were gouged out.
Nope.
Stab wounds in the empty eye sockets.
Oh.
And this is really bad. The pathologist determined that her eyes had been removed not less than 5 days and not more than 3 weeks before her death, which means that
She was alive.
she had been living with no eyes for up to 3 weeks.
Holy fuck tits.
And the pathologist also said that her eyes had been ripped out. They were not cleanly slivered. They were ripped out by fingers.
Oh, God, I just imagined it.
I feel like super nauseous.
Her cause of death was drowning.
How did she survive all of I feel like you would die just like your body would just go into shock.
Yeah.
It sounds like she got knocked in the head with a shower head, and that's what caused her to drown. So she did drown. She had been tied to a radiator during this time, either by something around her neck or he would just tie her hair to the radiator. When the police were like, she did not drown.
Yeah.
What?
She may have drowned, but there are some other things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we need to address here.
You want to know what he said? He goes, I didn't do anything that she didn't ask me to do. She liked to be hurt, he said. Her blood was found in every single room in the house, and her father had to ID her body.
Oh, no.
At trial, Smith denied murder and claimed Bates, quote, would put me through hell winding me up. He also claimed that Bates had taunted him about his dead mother and that she had a bad habit of hurting herself to make it look worse on me. When asked to explain why he had blinded, stabbed, and battered Bates, he said that she had dared him to do it, challenging him to do her harm. A jury at Manchester Crown Court took 1 hour to find 49-year-old Smith guilty of her murder, sentencing him to life imprisonment. The judge, Mr. Justice Sachs, recommended that Smith should serve a minimum of 20 years. He stated, quote, "This has been a terrible case, a catalog of depravity by one human being upon another. You are a highly dangerous person. You are an abuser of women, and I intend, so far as it is in my power, that you will abuse no more." The jury was provided with professional counseling to help them deal with the distress because they had to see all the photographs of her.
Oh, fuck, dude.
And for the first time ever in history, every single juror accepted the counseling.
Yeah, man. I need counseling.
Peter Openshaw, the prosecutor, said her death must have been a merciful end to her torment. And hate to end it on that note, but that's the end of that story. We know I love more, but I was re-listening to all their episodes. But they had done this episode during quarantine specifically because people who were quarantined with their abusers
Right,
was becoming
yeah.
such, I mean, yeah. And so looking for the resources for these phone numbers, I found a website called endtheviolencespokane.com. And it says on the top, Spokane County has the highest domestic violence incidence in all of Washington State, which I didn't know. But you can go to End the Violence Spokane or loveisrespect.org. And during COVID, I don't know if you can do this now, but I bet if you did, it would work. During COVID, you could walk into a pharmacy and say mask 19, and that would be like the code word to the pharmacist saying like, you're in help, you're in trouble.
Wow. I
Yeah.
didn't know that either.
The phone numbers for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, you can call 1-800-799-SAFE, or you can text START to 88788. And it's all confidential, and they figure it out so that it doesn't leave anything on your phone. And
Yeah. It's like the Dr. Phil and his wife did an app that looks just like a regular app.
Yeah.
And you set it up, so if you're in danger, you tap it like a couple times,
Yes.
and then it'll call
Yeah.
or text.
Exactly. So that was a terrible story.
Yeah,
and
that's not a great one. I mean, you told it was a good. I mean, you told it well, but
it was terrible though.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So remember who you are and what you represent.
yeah, and don't have it be eye gouging.
Yeah.
Don't eye gouge your loved ones, please.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. We put out new episodes every single Wednesday, and if you're impatient like me, be sure to become a Patreon where you can get your episodes early each week. For as little as $2 a month, you not only significantly support the production of this podcast, but you'll also get ad-free episodes in addition to them being early. Go to patreon.com/threesacrimepodcast. For pictures, videos, and links related to this episode, be sure to check out our Instagram at threesacrime. And for more information, go to threesacrime.com.